I make 2 videos a week on YouTube, I post daily on Instagram, and I run a community of 160 members called Discipline OS. I also learn and study social media, I do my research, and I also do one-on-one coaching inside the community about discipline. All of that, and I still have time to meditate, to read, to journal, to do the good habits, to spend time in a way that I like. I still have time to hit the beach every day. I still have time to spend time going out with friends. I still have time to do calisthenics and workout every single day. And the point is, you can make time for everything. So staying productive, time management, planning secrets. I'm gonna break everything down for you so you're able to do everything that you want to do and still have time to achieve your goals. So part number 1, the false shortage of time. So set number 1. You see, you have more time than you think. We all have 24 hours in the same exact day. Every day we have the same amount of time, yet some people manage to achieve so much and do so much, while other people, they can't even manage simple things. Now, if you want to get somewhere and achieve your goals and go very, very far in life, you're gonna need relentless time management. Because if you think about it, you know, time is of the essence, right? And everything is composed of time. So if you're able to manage your time, then you can manage the things that you do. And the things that you do create the results you see in your life, which creates your life. So your dream life is actually not a mystery. Your dream life is the byproduct of taking the action that you need to take. And that is the byproduct of having time management, proper time management. So you don't waste your time. You're not fake productive. You don't just feel busy and think that you're doing real work, but you actually optimize for the real things. So you have more time than you think. And I'm not talking about the obvious, you know, scroll less, you'll save 2 hours and you can reinvest those 2 hours into real work. That is obvious. I'm not talking about that. You see, chances are you're wasting time while trying to be productive. And I can say that with confidence because I was the same way. You know, before I was the guy who was able to manage all of this stuff like social media, posting on multiple platforms, you know, business as well, and exercise, and also taking care of my health, taking care of my mental health, going outside, doing this and doing that, and all these things. Before I was able to manage all these things, I had zero time management. And I felt the consequences of that because I was not able to do what I had to do. I wasn't able to achieve my goals. I wasn't able to stop procrastinating, you know, and I wasn't able to actually rid myself of the distractions, the fake productivity, the procrastination. And as a result, I would work hard, feel like I was doing a lot of work, and then at the end of the month, I didn't get any results. Because I was fake working, I was being fake productive. And the habits too, it's the exact same thing. I was not doing enough of the habits to the point where I was able to see actual results. You know, I was not reading enough to be able to see the mental effects of reading. I wasn't journaling enough to see the mental clarity that came from that. And everything is just so chaotic, there's no optimization. And that is pretty much how the 99% go about their time. I'll give you a couple of examples here. You know, let's say you spend 2 to 3 hours in the gym. A lot of people spend 2 to 3 hours in the gym. But when you really look at like 2 hours, like what are you doing in those 2 hours? You know, really, it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you look at those 2 hours, it's like the guy is literally resting for 45 minutes at a time. And while he's resting, he's scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram Reels, and then he calls it a 3-hour workout. And then he wonders why he doesn't have enough time in the day. Because he has a 3-hour scroll session at the gym. And then he also, you know, scrolls at home for another 3 hours. And then he does this and then he does that. And by the time he actually needs to do the work that is going to take him to the dream that he wants to achieve, he's depleted. He doesn't even feel like doing it. He doesn't have energy. He doesn't have time or motivation. And that is the state that most people live in. And the worst part about all this is that they don't even realize. This guy doesn't even realize it. And that is the importance of this whole video that you're watching, because if you can master time management, you can really master anything. So set 2. So the whole concept here is being a waiter. I'm not talking about the waiter in restaurants. I'm talking about the waiter as in a person who waits. A guy who just likes to wait. They have all these to-do lists, all these things and goals lined up, and they just wait. They can't help but just, you know, wait and procrastinate and push things off. And this is something that holds people back, you know, having all of these open loops. You know, you have to be the guy, you have to be the person who just closes these open loops. And what do I mean by open loops? I mean this. So open loops are things like, you know, the bill unpaid, the conversation left unfinished, the thing that you said you were going to do, but you didn't get around to do it, the friend that you said you were going to reach out and talk to, but you never did that, the attractive person whose number you didn't ask for. And all of these things are things that happen and you think that they don't matter, but they just pile up as mental baggage. They pile up in your mind and they just drain your energy, and they make you feel like, you know, you have to spend so much time doing random things just as a way to cope. So all of these open loops, all of these things that you think don't matter, they really do. Because I mean, I could ask you right now to remember the name of somebody you met 5 years ago. You probably can, right? You can remember it, but you weren't actively thinking about it. And just the same way, you're not actively thinking about these things but they're still there and you can still remember them. And that is why it is important to close open loops. And how do you do that? Every time you find an opportunity to do something that has been on your mind for a long time, that has just been, lying there, just go and do it. Just go and do it right now and clear yourself, free yourself of that mental baggage, free yourself of this drained mental energy. It's so important. Because as we know, time management is not just about managing time, it's about managing decisions, priorities, and energy. Now, part number 2, the calendar lie. The calendar lie is basically the idea that, you have a booked calendar. Your calendar is fully booked. Like on paper, it seems like you're so productive. It seems like you're so busy. It seems like you have all these things to do. From 2 to 3, you have a call with a friend. From 3 to 4, you go to the gym. And then from 4 to 5, you have another meeting. And then from 5 to 7, you have to do this. And it seems like you're just so productive. But when you just take a step back and look at the things that you actually accomplished, it really doesn't represent. Your calendar is full, but your inputs are pretty minimal. It's the idea of, you're doing a lot of things, but progress has barely moved. I probably said this in another video, and if you watch these videos regularly, it means you care about your growth. It means you're invested in becoming that better version of yourself. So in another video, I said something like this. Productivity isn't about how hard you work or how many hours you work. It is about the results that you get at the end of the month. This goes back to Parkinson's law, where if you give yourself 3 days to clean your home, it's going to take 3 days. If you give yourself 3 weeks, it's going to take 3 weeks. So if you think about things like that, you can actually cut down on time and free yourself up more time by just doing tasks in less time, by just achieving things faster, moving faster, being a faster person. Like in marketing, there's a term called speed to lead. As soon as you get a lead, as soon as you get a contact or somebody that might be potentially interested in doing business with you, the longer you wait, the more their passion and excitement actually fades. So the faster you're able to connect and talk to that person, the more likely you are to engage them, the more likely you are to sell them later on. And that speed to lead concept, that speed to implementation, how fast are you able to do something and finish it? How fast are you able to stop procrastinating, stop, pushing things off? How fast are you able to just do the work head on and not procrastinate and just get it done time and time again? So going back to the calendar lie, it's like some people have calls all day. They have calls literally all day, and then they ask themselves, why don't I have time for this or for this or for this? But the truth is they think these calls are productive, but the call is 30 minutes and then it stretches out to an hour and a half. And they end up talking about random things. You have to cut down on low priority things. You have to cut down on the things that aren't making you money, right? If you're sitting in a meeting for 3 hours and you're not even getting paid to be there, or you're not even getting information that will get you paid, then really what's the point? It's just fake productivity. And I'm not really talking about calls with friends. Obviously, if you talk to your friends, that's a completely different story. But I'm talking about like business meetings or meetings with some person regarding, some business thing, or something about work, something about a project. And those types of meetings have to be restricted, have to be just cut down, because that is a source of fake productivity. What else is a source of fake productivity? Checking emails. If you're checking emails for 5 hours every single day, you really have to rethink your priorities. And I know this sounds harsh. I know you might be like, what is this guy talking about? This guy's just like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But trust me when I say this, there's a lot of inputs that you think are dialed, but they're really not. Think about your dream life, right? Think about all the things you want to achieve. That is the output. You can't control the output, but you can control the inputs. And by having solid inputs, the output becomes high quality as a result. And I'm sure for a fact, because with myself, I thought for a long time that I was working 12-hour days. I was super focused, but I realized that my inputs were just like 3% optimized. So what I did was I started really looking at my inputs. How do I spend every single minute of every single day? And not just like in the hour time frame where I would be like, okay, from the morning till 12 I work, and then from 12 till 2 I go to the gym, and then from 2 to 3 I have lunch. No, not like that. That is suboptimal optimization. It's good, but it doesn't get you that far. But instead, I started to go into the minutes. Between minute 1 and 2, between 12:01 and 12:05, what am I doing? What am I doing between 12:30 and 12:45? Because the way time is mostly lost, the way time management really becomes hard for most people is simply because they underestimate the value of minutes compounded. Like they don't realize that 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 1 minute here and 1 minute there and a couple minutes here, at the end of the day, actually turn out to be a couple of hours. Like you would literally be surprised at the amount of time that is just stacking up and collecting just by minutes and minutes turning into hours and hours. And that is where the danger lies, right? The danger lies in not just in the optimizations that you can see but you don't do, but in the hidden things, the things that take your time, the things that end up consuming more time without even realizing it. Because the things that are hidden, the things that you can't realize, they might go on for months and months and months. and you won't even notice. You'll just feel more burnt out, less productive, and you won't know why. And that is why it's so important to do a self-analysis, to just understand all of your inputs and all of your outputs. I'll give you an example from the community. We had weekly calls for about a couple of months now. And in the weekly calls, sometimes we just like stretch it out and keep it open-ended. Meaning that the call was scheduled to be 1 hour, but then sometimes it would be 2 hours. Sometimes we'd speak as long as 2 hours and a half. And we noticed that less people would show up to these calls. And we started to ask ourselves, why? And the truth is, they would get so long to the point where there'd be a lot of friction. If you're spending 2 hours in a call, like chances are it's a lot of time, and the next time you're not really going to be wanting to do it. So what we did is we made our group calls 1 hour exactly. Once the 1 hour mark reaches, we just say bye to everybody and we just stop the calls. Even if there's a conversation, even if we wanted to talk more, we just wrap it up and we leave it for next time. And as a result, as of doing this, more people started to show up. The people who were there were more engaged and the calls were way, way better. So a lot of the times, more time does not mean better. Less time actually means better. So part number 3, reclaiming your time. So let's get into these strategies on how you can reclaim your time. So I handpicked all of these things because they pretty much worked for me and everybody at Discipline OS. We use these strategies all the time, these techniques, and they're pretty much the best of the best. So strategy number 1 is the hidden leverage window. So you need to find these small actions that have a very, very big gain. So really looking at yourself and almost thinking that you can actively choose what you want to do. Imagine that everything was a choice. Everything that you are currently doing that you think that you have to do, imagine for a second it is a choice. What would you remove? And what would you keep? Sometimes you gotta sacrifice what you're doing at the moment for an opportunity that comes unannounced. I'll give you an example of this. So it was December 31st, a couple of weeks ago, the end of 2025, where we had this unannounced, almost like spontaneous webinar. So the exact night before, a friend that I do business with called me up and said, what do you think about doing a webinar tomorrow? And usually the old me says no. Usually the old me would be like, I don't really have time for this, or it's too spontaneous, or I think I'll do it next time. But I decided to say yes. And as a result, the next night, there was the webinar and I didn't even know how many people were going to show up. And I had this whole presentation lined up to speak in front of, I thought would be 20, 30 people. And as soon as we started, people started to just flood in. And there were like 50 people. And I had to just publicly speak in front of 50 people about discipline, about self-improvement, mindsets. And it was pretty good. I was a bit nervous, obviously. But I still managed. And I really didn't expect it. I'm like, the night before, this wasn't even on my mind. And now I'm just talking and presenting in front of 50 people. That's a big step. And that's also an example of having this flexible mindset. Being able to let go of current beliefs, current things that you might think that, this is so productive. I have to do this. And if I don't do this, it's going to be bad. But instead adopting the student mindset, the mindset of I am willing to learn, I'm willing to invest in myself, I'm willing to take the leap of faith, to take that risk, to do the things that I have to do. And that mindset you can use for inputs, outputs, you can use for time management, you can use for the things that you want to optimize. And it's a very powerful mindset to have. The second concept is preparation saves hours. So in my community, there's been so many people who are joining recently, and I make it as the community owner, I make it a habit or almost a rule to respond to every single comment. I respond to everybody. I reach out to people there. I message people there. And this used to take me a lot of time. We're talking hours every single day. But I used a tool that started to help me, and it's called Whisper Flow. Basically, it's not the sponsor of this video. This video is not sponsored. But basically, it allows you to dictate your words. So I'm basically able to speak into this mic over here, and it writes out text. So that way I'm able to save time, Funny enough, this has saved me hours every single day. Same output, just using a template, automating things, doing things that are only high leverage, are only like high value, and the automated things, the things that anybody can do, allowing like a computer to do it, allowing some other person to do it, delegating or making it fast. The second concept is focus extends time. Now, if you meditate for 1 hour every single day consistently, what is going to happen is if you stop meditating for an hour and instead you start meditating for 15 minutes, in those 15 minutes, you're going to learn to be way more focused, way faster. It's like if you're consistently doing hard things, right? If you're all the way over here, then even the normal things become easy. The more you sweat in training, the less you're going to sweat in the real game. So using this principle for work and sweating more in training, meaning that you allow yourself more focused, more like strong, deep work blocks so that you're able to raise your standard and threshold for what productive feels like. And then when you're able to finally go back down to normal, it's going to be so much easier. So learn to execute fast, learn to be a fast action taker, learn to do things quickly, learn to, snap yourself into focus and learn to lock in fast. Now, the next concept is quiet hour phenomenon. You see, for most people, you're working, you have the 9 to 5, you wake up, you go to the 9 to 5, you come back, by the time you finish, you're already drained and Now you have to still go to the gym, still take care of yourself. And then you have to do this. And you have so much things in your life. You have so much, like so many activities, so many delegations, so many priorities, so many things to attend to that you don't have time to take a step back, to have a quiet hour. Most people are so caught up with all the big things, all the small things that they don't even have time to sit down and think about their life, think about what they want to do, think about their aspirations and their dreams. And as a result, people just live in the same cycle over and over again without being able to change. So you need to give yourself a quiet hour. You need to give yourself time where you're doing absolutely nothing. Now, yesterday, I just sat down for 30 minutes and I did nothing. I'm not talking about nothing as in like not doing any work, but literally doing nothing. I sat and stared at a window, outside the window for 30 minutes. And what I felt after this moment was a moment of clarity. I felt like I had more direction. I felt like a step back from my life, and I was able to enter my life, to re-enter my life and my priorities and my work, my tasks, my goals as well, from a much clearer perspective, from a much better angle. And that is important for time management because you need to have clarity. You know, you can't optimize what is not clear. So you need to create clarity. You need to know, okay, this is what I want from life. This is what I have to do. This is what I'm currently doing. This is where I want to be. So taking a step back and taking like an hour or 30 minutes out of your single week to just do nothing. You know, stare at a wall, stare outside the window, and allow yourself to just sit with your thoughts. I mean, this is so simple, but it's so effective. And most people, they ignore this. They think that, you know, what is this going to do for me? You know, staring at a wall, that's so useless. But in fact, doing nothing is the most productive thing you can do. Now, if you want to get 1% better every day using the Atomic Habits principles, then watch this video here. Or if you want to learn how to create systems in your life, watch this video over here. Thank you for watching. Really means the world to me, and I'll see you in the next video.